Good afternoon to the members of the First MLS, and welcome to today's training on Realist. Realist has been selected as your product of the month for First MLS. And of course, Realist is your tax and public record system brought to you by CoreLogic. Again, my name's Brent Adams. I'll be your trainer today. And we're just going to go through a quick little PowerPoint here, and then we'll hop into Realist and show you all the great things that you can do. So I'm about to show you again Realist, which is your tax and public record solution. And it integrates with Matrix, your listing system, also brought to you by CoreLogic. Something new that we've added to Realist in the past several months is the new Realist dashboard. And it gives you just a lot of great information that I'll go over with you. Quick stats, information about different blogs that we've got available for you, CoreLogic and others. Also, other real estate news sites that you can get information from. So we like to give you a lot of analytics there on that dashboard. Also, a couple of helpful tools in terms of doing things in Realist as well. We'll store your last viewed properties in a widget there on that homepage. We'll store any saved properties on that dashboard as well. And we'll even give you access to take a look at and create save searches and even do a search by address as well, right there from the dashboard. So all kinds of new features that are available for you there that we'll go over in just a minute. But when you get into the search section of Realist, and you may see at the top of that first image there on the upper left-hand corner of my screen, there's a dashboard selection and a search selection. So dashboard is, of course, what I was showing you on the last page. Search is really where you get your business done in Realist. And it's a very simple integrated interface. On the left-hand side, you will actually see the search section. And then when you return properties based on the information you put into those search boxes, whether it be an owner name or an address or physical characteristics or a sale price that you're looking for a group of properties, we'll return those properties in two places. One is in the form of push pins on the map, sort of at the top of that grid right there. And then, of course, below is the grid where you can sort through properties and take a look at that group of properties that you're looking at. You can arrange them however you want, click through them, and take a look at all the details for them. Now, clicking in a number of different places on this home screen on at least a property, is going to get you into a property detail report. You see that at the lower right-hand side of my screen. That's the flagship report in Realist. That's the report where you're going to find who owns the property, where it's located, what its taxes were over the past several years, when it sold, are there any foreclosures or liens against it, what mortgages have been taken out on the property, and all kinds of other stuff as well. Now, there are also some supplemental reports that go along with that property detail report. And those are generally designed to show you information about other properties in the area, whether it's comparables, trends in the area, an assessor map showing you a sort of larger look at the property via the map, even flood map information as well. So Realist is taking maps. By the way, we use Google Maps. We're taking property data that we collect from your assessor's office, that we collect from your county recorder's office, that we get from deeds of sale and mortgage and foreclosure. We're taking your MLS data. So all the information that you put into your listings, we bring that into Realist as well. And then we've got information about schools and businesses and demographics. We're taking all this public records information along with your MLS data, and we're combining it into this one nice little package called Realist, to make things searchable for you, to give you these nice reports that you're going to be able to print, you're going to be able to email and send those to your clients as well. So let's talk a little bit about the data that we provide to you in Realist. Now, tax and assessment data in the 3 states that we serve for you, Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee. You've got all statewide coverage in all 3 of those states. But information about taxes and assessments is generally updated annually in each one of your counties. Now, it'll depend on each county, how often or when we get those updates, but you'll see that as you kind of roll through the property detail report in today's demo. Now, sales, mortgages, foreclosures, that information is updated much more often than annually. Those can be updated as often as daily. It does, again, depend on the specific county in which we're providing you data. So I can show you information in Fulton County, and it may be updated, as of a week or 2 ago. I may show you information in maybe some more rural counties where it's a little bit more difficult to get that information, and it may not be updated quite as often. So I'll show you how you can check how up to date the data is in any of these given properties. or as counties, I should say. We even use some indicators using some proprietary rules. We'll show you when a property is owned by the bank. We can show you when a property has sold to a third party by the bank as well, including those foreclosures. So foreclosures and distressed properties, also great information that we can provide to you within Realist. I spoke about your MLS data and how we bring that in on a regular basis. So on a daily basis, we'll bring in your photos. We will bring in your listing dates and your prices. We'll show you your current and historical listings right in Realist. So you get a complete listing history for each property in Realist itself. Certainly the source of truth there is Matrix, but we're getting all that same information from Matrix and incorporating it into Realist as well. You'll hear me mention Matrix and Realist a lot. One of the things I do say is, Matrix is your listing system, and you may have noticed it does have a little bit of tax data in it. But now your tax and public record system, Realist, also has a little bit of listing data in it too. And that brings me down to when we actually show you the characteristics of homes as well. We get all the information about bedrooms, bathrooms, and whatnot, and that all comes in from the county. Now, if a property's been listed, we bring in those photos, we bring in those statuses. We also bring in a few different fields, usually having to do with beds, bathrooms, square footage, and we will show you what the listing says about that property, so what the listing agent put into that listing, and we'll compare it alongside the information we get for that same property for the county as well. And that can lead to discrepancies sometimes. So for example, if an agent is listing a property and they see that it has 4 bedrooms and they put that listing in, but perhaps the previous owner, when they put an addition on that property and added another bedroom, maybe they didn't get the proper permits or the county didn't pick that up. So the county still thinks it's a 3-bedroom property. The agent knows it's a 4-bedroom property. They've been in there. There can be a discrepancy there. We don't tell you who's right or who's wrong. We leave it up to your discretion as to which value you feel more comfortable using in those cases. All right, moving on to the mapping data. We'll spend some time on the maps here in a little bit as well. And one of the things I love about the maps is the GIS data, the parcel property boundaries that we can put right on top of our interactive Google Maps. That allows you to simply walk the block. And you'll see this in Matrix and other CoreLogic products that we offer to you. But if you're just looking at a map in Realist and you click on the parcel lines for that property, you will find more information about that property, all the information you need. You'll get to that property detail report. Great if, maybe you pass a piece of vacant land on the way to work every day. You don't know what the address is, don't know how to search for it in Realist. Find it physically on the map and you'll be able to find more information about that property too. Now, those boundaries, including neighborhoods, zip codes, school districts, counties, all updated annually. Another overlay that we create for you on the maps are flood zones, which we collect from FEMA. Those are updated on a monthly basis as well. Lots of other overlays we can put on the map too. Points of interest, where the schools, the medical facilities, the places to shop, the places to eat. We can show you where all your listings are, or where sales that have occurred according to the county that may not necessarily have been processed through your MLS. Those can be plotted on the map too. We've even got larger overarching trends via heat maps. So if you're interested in seeing zip codes or neighborhoods where more properties have sold versus less, or where properties have sold for more rather than for a lower price, we'll be able to show that for you on the trends on an overlay on a map too. The best thing about Realist, and I mentioned this to you earlier, is we cover 3 states for you, and you have access to every county and every parcel in all 3 of those states. So that's Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia. And that can make for a really great marketing opportunity for you too. Again, you're looking at properties that have maybe never been processed through the MLS. And you have access to all the address and owner information for every single one of those properties in each 3 of those states. So we also allow you to print out mailing labels via Realist. So I'll show you how to do a little marketing campaign as we get a little deeper in today's demo. And you can also export all the information that you see in a property detail report into a spreadsheet too. So for example, if you want to export mailing data and use a mailing house to create mailing labels for you to do a just sold mailing or something along those lines, you can. Also, you can export sale prices, assessments, taxes, just to see where all that information is coming from and run any sort of information or any sort of reports that you need to on that. So that's just getting information out of Realist into spreadsheet form, or even printing out or emailing those reports in the forms of PDFs to your clients. The other thing to know about Realist, I do get the question a lot, is there a Realist app? And the answer is no, there is no Realist app. However, Realist is a responsive design website. So as long as you're able to access, again, Matrix or your Remind SSO and get into Realist via a mobile device, it's going to work just fine on any of those mobile devices. iOS, Android, any others, all will work. You can see searching, property details, maps, groups of properties here, and all these sort of 4 screenshots I have of this phone are all going to work for you just fine. Even if you're using a tablet of some sort, it's going to be available and going to be working for you on any of those mobile devices as well. All right, with that said, let's hop out of here. Let's hop out of the PowerPoint and let's get into Realist and start showing you how to do a couple of things. So I'm here in Matrix. Let me back up just a moment, and I want to show you how to get into Realist. Normally, the only way to get into Realist is usually from a listing system, in this case, Matrix. However, you all do have your Remind SSO, and one of the tiles on your single sign-on page here is the Realist icon over here. So you do have several ways to get into Realist. Number one, right here from your SSO, simply click on the Realist tile, and you can get in if you want to. I like to show people all the integration there is with Matrix as well, and that's where I'm going to start today's demo. So as I go into Matrix, and let's just say I'm pulling up a search and I'm looking up some properties. I just want to look for some residential homes. I'm not even going to put in any information. I'm just going to go right into my results. And what I'll point out to you is at the right-hand side of this one line or this agent single line view, and it may be available on other single line views for you as well, but all the way out here to the right, you're going to see one that says Realist Map. So if I'm taking a look at this property either in the one line view, or if I click on the listing details itself, you'll also see that same icon listed down here at the bottom, Realist Map, in addition to another Realist link, Realist Neighborhoods. That'll take you into a report called the Neighborhood Report in Realist. But if you'd just like to get into Realist to see more information about this home from a tax and public records perspective, simply click that little Realist Map button, and it will take you directly into Realist itself. Not only that, since we're coming in from a listing, it's actually going to put a little push pin right on top of that property where the property is located and give you all the details you need to know about that price down here in the grid too. So you can always get into Realist from a specific listing if you want to. All right, I opened that up in a new tab. I'm going to close that out right now. And I'll point out that not only can you get in from a listing, but also at the very top up here where it says Public Records, you'll also always see a Realist Tax button. This allows you to get into Realist without going in from a listing. So if you just want to just kind of start doing some work in Realist, go ahead and click on Realist Tax. And what you'll notice is this first takes me to the dashboard. What I want to show you quickly is, if you're wondering why you're at the dashboard, you're not going into the search where I was a moment ago. This is where you toggle between those up here at the top. So click on search. This should look very familiar to where we just were, where we came in from that one listed property. But I can also click over here on the dashboard and toggle back to that dashboard too. Now, number one, the dashboard makes searching and accessing things you've done in Realist very easy. If you want to do a search by address, start to type in information here, into the address box at the top, and it will autocomplete properties in your coverage area, and you can simply do a search right here from the dashboard. Similarly, I'll scroll down a little bit further. If you've saved properties in Realist by clicking the star next to them in various places that it's available, you can access those saved properties right here, and you can scroll through different ones if you want to too. Other things that we do to help you out with your searches, last viewed properties. Lots of times you'll be doing searches in Realist and you walk away for a moment, you get logged out, and you realize you'd found a perfect property, but you don't remember what the address was, and you got logged out of Realist. You're not sure where to find it anymore. Well, any last viewed property, even if you didn't save it, is also available for you here. So we've got all the last properties that you viewed recently, and you can click through any of them to get to them quickly here. And of course, you can also access any of your saved searches here if you want to as well, both the searches that we have ready for you the first and every time that you log into Realist, and other saved searches that you may have saved as individuals as well. All right, scrolling up a little bit further, kind of going back up, I also want to point out that there are some helpful tools here. Number one, we'll let you know the market temperature. Is it a buyer's market or a seller's market? We give you access to the CoreLogic Twitter feed. You can scroll through that, or you can actually go out to Twitter and see our feed itself. Scrolling down even further, we've got access to property market insights. This will take you to the CoreLogic blog, where we've got various articles that you can take a look at, letting you know what's going on in the real estate industry. Also, speaking of the real estate industry, we've also got another widget for you over here where you can look at different news sources, whether it be Inman or Housing Wire or potentially Real Estate News or Realty Times. We've got various articles that you can take a look at here. So again, you can keep your finger on the pulse of the real estate market in the area. And of course, we've got great charts letting you know, for example, the average MLS sale price over the past 12 months. This is a rolling 12-month period, and I'm just looking at the data in Fulton County, Georgia. Of course, you can select different counties. You can even select multiple counties here, and you can compare properties back and forth or different areas back and forth as far as their sale prices or their change in sales activity here, another rolling 12-month period. But that's really everything I wanted to show you about the dashboard. I guess last thing I do want to show you is you can manage these widgets. That's up here at the upper right-hand corner. You can also click in the kind of corners of any of these widgets, and you can turn them off if you want to. And you can also click and drag them and move them into different areas if you'd like to as well. So you can use which ones are visible and where you want them, and also play around with your news options, as you saw me kind of taking a look at there before. So again, always easy to go ahead and even drag the widget if you want to, and put them in different places if you like to, and all those things will kind of snap to. But let's get into some searches. Let's show you all this information that you've got available to you. So number one, Realist is a county-based system. And actually, let me back up even from that. Take a look at your search page right now. It is broken up into three major parts. Your search section over here on the left-hand side, we're searching in Fulton County. And then when I return the properties, they're returned here on the map. Here, I could even scroll out a little bit and give you a little bit more of a 30,000-foot view. And then you'll also return them down here on the grid. But depending on what you're doing in Realist, you may want to change the screen around a bit. If you want to hide your search section, there's an arrow that allows you to do that. If you're interested in drawing shapes on the map and finding properties on the map, you can either click and drag here on this little gray bar sort of in the middle between the grid. Same thing, you can also work with a number of different properties in the grid. There's also a button up here that allows you to switch it to just a map, just a list, or go back to that split view again too. So totally up to you as to how you like to view things in Realist and what you're doing at a given time. Next, I do want to point out that we do, again, want you to choose a county in which you're going to search. You can see Fulton County, Georgia is where I'll be doing my searches today. You'll also notice the recording date. It says September 12th, 2024. This is where I'm going to show you how up to date the data is in each and every one of the counties that we provide for you. So today's date is September 26th. So the 12th is about 2 weeks behind today's date. What that means for you is if there's a property that's sold in Fulton County, Georgia, actually not even that's sold, but if there was a property that's sold and had its information recorded at the county level after September 12th, 2024, you would not see that sale or that mortgage or that foreclosure reflected in Realist. Now, don't forget every day that you log in, we may be updating in this case with Fulton County, possibly every day, 4 or 5 times a week. So every day you log in, you may see that date jump up. Now, you can also search in multiple counties. And as I mentioned, we've got the entire state of Alabama, the entire state of Georgia, and the entire state of Tennessee in which you can search. Now, unfortunately, you can't search in all 3 of those states at one time. We do limit you to searching in 12 counties at one time. So I can click a number of these counties and I can search in, again, 12 counties at one time. You'll also see that each and every one of these counties has its own individual recording date. Fulton County is the 12th. Come down here to Bartow, Georgia. They're up to date as of the 16th. Come down here to Baker County. They're up to date as of the 9th. So this just lets you know exactly how up to date the data is in each and every one of your counties as well. But I'll be doing most of my searches in Fulton County. Just be aware that you can search in up to a dozen at one time if you want to. Next, under searching, there's a quick search tab and a my search tab. Now, quick search is really what you see is what you get. Most people that come into Realist are generally searching for one property. They just want to find out information about who owns it, or maybe what their mortgage was, or is there a foreclosure action against this property. So if you have an address, an owner name, a listing number, a tax ID, those are usually great ways to search for a single property. The other thing is of course, if you just start putting in information, as you saw me do earlier, we will auto-complete that address for you. So the more information you put in, the more choices we'll give you as to which property you're looking for. So you can, again, even put in a partial address. You can even put in a partial owner name. We do have these starts with wildcards, where if you want to spell things exactly as are stored in our database, you can choose to do that. I like to leave these turned on because Sure, I might know, Mr. Smith owns the property down the street that I'm looking for, but it could be the Smith Family Living Trust, or it could be John Smith LLC that owns that property. So it's just a great idea to leave those wildcards turned on. The less information you put into these given search boxes, the greater the chances are you're going to find what you're looking for. We can add multiple values to most of these searches too. So if you put in a listing number and you want to look for another property with a separate listing number, simply hit the plus sign. It'll look for that property in addition to another property you put in or a third property you put in. So you can continually put information into most of these searches multiple times. And that's really it for quick search. Again, very basic. What you see is what you get. You have these 4 search attributes. My search allows for a lot more power, and for some of our power users, you may want to be canvassing an area and looking for properties that fit certain characteristics that your client is interested in or that you're interested in for investment purposes. In this dropdown, the first time you ever get into Realist, these locked searches are searches that will always be available for you. We put them in here because we think they're relatively helpful. A general search, an MLS data search, also foreclosure search, my search default. Take a look at these, see if they work for you. If they don't, you can do a couple of different things. You can customize a search, and you can create your own custom search, either by building off an existing search or simply creating a new search from scratch, and giving it a name. I'll just call this one test search. Now, here are all the search attributes you have available for you. We have tried to organize them into logical sections so that you can find them easily, such as who owns the property and where they live full-time, or are the properties owner-occupied. Location information, the physical location of this property that we're looking for. Characteristics, all the bedrooms, bathrooms, square footages. I mentioned we bring in your listing information all the time, and it's all searchable. So anything you see here is also searchable in Realist, same as it would be in Matrix. Assessment and tax data, sales information, foreclosures, and mortgages all can be searched. So if you're looking to find a property in a certain city with a certain number of bathrooms and a certain number of bedrooms that has a tax below X amount of dollars, let's see, that has a square footage between 2,000 and 3,000 square feet and has a homestead exemption, again, you get the idea. The possibilities are endless for you here. You can create your own search to find the properties that match exactly what you're looking for. So I'll cancel out of here. I'm not going to create a new search. Understand that if you did, it would be available for you afterwards in this dropdown, and you could access it again and again. I've got a property that you might see here, 2941 Dale Street. I want to get into the data that we collect for these properties, so I want to get into a property detail report for you. So in the house number, I've put 2941. In the street name, I've put Dale. I'm going to hit that search, and we're likely just going to find one property that matches that criteria, and there it is. Now, as it turns out, you're seeing all this information in the grid. We're putting a little push pin where the property is, and you also notice the push pin is red. That indicates that property has been sold through your MLS. And when that happens, there's a couple of different things that you can do. You can actually link back into Matrix. So let's say you're just searching around in Realist, you find a property with some photos, and you find a property that says, there's a listing in the MLS for this. Well, there are various places, both here in this pop-up on the map, and also down here on the grid, where if you click, you will go back into Matrix, into the entire listing history for this particular property. So there it is. You've got all 4 of these listings for this home. This property has been listed through First MLS 4 different times. Closed once, 2 withdrawns, and then the most recent close that we're looking at right now. And you can even get into all the details for this too. So we've got all this ability to link. Again, you saw me start. I started in Matrix, and I went into Realist. Then when I got into Realist, I found a property, and I went back into Matrix. So again, lots of integration between the 2 sites. Just wanted to point that out for you before we got too much further. All right, next I want to get into the suite of reports for this property. And I can do that in a couple different ways. I can click on the report button here on the pop-up. I can click on reports down here in the grid, or I can simply double click on this property on the grid too. All right, and a lot of people ask sometimes, hey, where did my map go? My map's gone now. How do I get back to it? Well, not surprisingly, you hit the back button, and it comes right back, and you're right back to where you were. So if you ever get lost, you'll be able to see that. And again, double click again. Just think about these reports sort of opening up in front of that map, and that map is still staying there in the background. All right, so you can see the physical address of the property. Here's where I do have the ability to favorite or unfavorite this property. You can see when I take an action, we'll have that little green bar up there to tell you you've done something, but I unfavorited and then favorited it again. So you'll see that star either gets filled up or not filled up, depending on whether or not it's a favorite. Now, this property has been listed. If it weren't, you wouldn't see these photos. It would just sort of be like a generic picture of a house here. But since we do have photos, and this property has been listed before, we'll click on that photo and we'll open up an entire carousel, and these are the same photos that are associated with that most recent closed listing that you saw back in Matrix. Now you can scroll through this home, take a look at the entryway and the living room and the dining room. Beautiful house. Look at those dark floors. Love it. You can see that nice looking fireplace. Great looking kitchen. Again, all the photos you see in Matrix, same photos you're going to see in Realist. If it was actively listed and the agent changed these photos, Realist would pick up those changes almost immediately as well. Also, since this property is listed, we're showing you sort of hybrid data up here. Both MLS data, that's again information coming from the listing, and also some tax data coming directly from the tax roll from Fulton County, Georgia in this case. If this property were not listed, all of this information would be coming from the tax roll, simply from Fulton County, Georgia, and you'd see the number of bedrooms and bathrooms that they have for those properties. Next, we'll move down to these various sections. The first one is the owner information section. This lets you know who owns the property and where they live full time. So this is their tax billing address, which very often can be different from the physical address of the property. You may have folks that own this as an investment property. You may have folks who rent it out. You may have folks who are renting this property. This lets you know that the person who owns this property actually is living in this property. We match up that tax billing address against the physical address of the home, and if they match, we consider that an owner-occupied home. You'll even have the opportunity to search for properties that are or are not owner-occupied in Realist too. Something else we've been doing in Realist recently is we've been trying to add a lot more analytics, I should say. So things like our community insights and some other proprietary information and scores that we place on these properties are also going to be available too. So for example, we'll show you what the median home value in this neighborhood is and what the median home value rating is. What's the crime risk score? How are the schools scored in Atlanta Public Schools? Is it a family-friendly area? How walkable is the neighborhood? What's the Q1 home price forecast? And what's the home appreciation in the past 2 years? 11%. So just trying to provide you as agents analytics that are going to allow you to keep your finger on the pulse of the real estate market and impart this knowledge to your clients. So that when they're asking, why are we bidding X, Y, and Z on a property, or why are we listing my property for this much, you have the numbers and the analytics to back up those decisions as well. All right, moving down a little bit further, getting now into just some basic, boilerplate tax information, subdivision, your census tract, your carrier route, the topography of the area, your flood zone code, moving down to tax information. We've got your various tax IDs. You may have seen the tax ID search attribute that I showed you earlier. It's a great way to search for properties. Certainly, every property has their own individual tax ID or parcel ID. But I do want to show you that we have the short version, we have the long version unformatted, and we have the long version that is formatted. The other thing that you'll see in certain counties, and again, this is a county by county basis, where it's available, we may be able to link out to the county websites associated with this data. So notice this tax ID is hyperlinked. When I click on it, in this case, it takes me out to the Fulton County Board of Assessors website. And this is literally where Realist and CoreLogic is pulling this information from. So here's all the information about your zoning, who owns the property, all the physical characteristics, the sales history, valuations, assessment notices, building sketches. They've got photos as well, and your appeal history and your tax bill information as well. Now, in some cases, we may take you out, as in this case, directly to the property card for a particular home. In other cases, that linking may not work quite that well. We may just take you out to the website itself, and you can do a further search there. And some counties may not have this linking at all, but I do want to point out where it's available for you. We'll next move down into the assessment and tax tab. So here's where you'll get a 3-year rolling period of assessments and taxes and the dollar and percentage change year over year. Now, it's a rolling 3-year period, so once 2024's taxes come in and we get those processed, you'll see 2021's drop off, and it'll be that new 3-year rolling period. But that's where all your assessments and taxes are. Moving down a little bit further, now we're into the physical characteristics of the home. So here, really pretty straightforward stuff, with the exception of I wanted to show you some of these composite fields that we're using. As I mentioned, if a property is listed, the listing agent may say one thing about a property. The tax roll or Fulton County may say another thing about a property. So in those cases where there are discrepancies, we'll show you here that, again, according to the county, this property was built in 1948. According to the agent, this property was built in 2001. And it is kind of interesting because the truth sort of lies somewhere in between here. In fact, if you want to do the research on your own, I won't waste your time with showing it to you now. You saw the pictures earlier. Property's clearly been renovated, and it was renovated in 2001. So the agent is saying, effectively, this property's been really rebuilt in 2001. Whereas the county doesn't know anything about these remodels. They say, hey, this is when the property was built in 1948 originally, so that's what we're sticking with. So when there are discrepancies, you will see them. For example, basement type. This one isn't very helpful. According to the county, it's a full basement. According to the listing agent, it says no basement. So you may want to look into that one, but there can be those discrepancies. And those usually go for, again, square footage, and they also might go for certain rooms as well. So sometimes we match. Notice, according to the county, it's a 4-bedroom property. According to the listing agent, it's a 4-bedroom property. Hey, we match. That's great. We show you we only the one value since we match, but we do also show you that we're getting it from 2 different sources. So really, that's the only thing to pay attention to there. If you get confused about why it says tax and MLS, 2 different sources we're getting the data from. We don't tell you who's right or who's wrong. We just show you what each different source says. Moving down further, we continue with physical characteristics by showing you the square footage of some building features. Sometimes these are helpful, sometimes they're not. I'm not sure what masonry necessarily means. Could be a stone patio. But, other of these is going to be, wood deck. Looks like there are various wood decks of different sizes around the property, and you got the information for those down here too. All right, back into some of the proprietary values that we put on a lot of these properties. So in this case, what we've got here is the sell score indicator. This is a score between 0 and 1,000 that indicates the relative likelihood that this property is going to be listed for sale in the next 6 months. 706 is rather high. This is also a searchable value. So if you're looking in Realist for properties that might have a high propensity to sell over the next 6 months, this is a great feature for you to use. So the sell score indicator is exactly what it indicates and what I just mentioned. Now, if that property were to sell in the next 6 months, here's about what we think it would sell for, $1.368 million. Now, we don't just give you this number and say, yep, that's what it's going to sell for. We don't pretend to be able to know exactly what a home's going to sell for. So what we tell you is, how good do we think this value is? And when we tell you how good we think that value is, we do it in 2 different ways. One is with the confidence score, and one is with the forecast standard deviation. Now, you can read all about both of those down here in the fine print if you want to. But in layman's terms, we think there's a 95% chance this property is going to sell between plus or minus 11% of $1.36 million. And that's represented right there in that range between 1.2 and 1.5. And we calculate these values relatively frequently, usually, once every 2 or 3 weeks or so. So just another way or another proprietary value we place on these properties. Additionally, we'll tell you what we think this property might rent for as well. Now, these are all values that CoreLogic creates, and they can be good. They can be not as good. As I mentioned, you'll see lower confidence scores, and you may not want to use those. Again, it has to do with how often this property sold, how often properties in the neighborhood sold, what are other properties in the neighborhood renting for. We take all that into account. Now, don't forget, on every single one of these reports that I'm about to show you, you can print them or you can email them as PDFs. So PDFs will be directly emailed out of Realist, or you can print them to PDF and send them out to someone via your Outlook or your Google Gmail or anything else that you want to. But the reason I bring that up is because there's a lot of information in here that maybe you don't necessarily want to share with your clients. Maybe it has to do with foreclosures or mortgages or some of these values that you're not maybe fond of. So what we can do is we can come over here to the Customize View section, and we can say, I don't want that sales score in there when I share this with my client. Don't need that estimated value. I also don't want the rental trends either. So I uncheck those and hit apply. And now all three of those sections of that report that I just showed you are now gone. We go right from features right into listing information. When you print this, when you email this, it will look exactly as it looks right now to you. Now, don't forget, now when you do more searches in Realist and you're looking at other properties and you don't see all those sell scores and rental scores and everything else, you do have to put them back. So you've actually got to put them back before you see them for any property. So when you do remove them, they're removed universally for all properties, and you'll have to put them back if you care to see them again or want to send them out to somebody as well. All right, scrolling down a little bit further, and I do see some questions. Let me see if I can get to a couple of these. Let's see. Thank you for giving me the information about the new build in 2001. I appreciate that, Diana. What data goes into computing the sell score? As I just sort of mentioned, it's going to have to do with a lot of different factors. We're going to look at neighborhood data. When was the last time this property sold? How many properties are selling in that neighborhood right now? I mean, basically, it's a very large algorithm that I can't give you right now. It's sort of one of those, I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you. Pieces of data, but it's all these proprietary algorithms that we put a lot of work into on the core logic side, but they take all kinds of things into effect, including what's going on with that property and what's going on with neighboring properties in the area as well. All right, scrolling down a little bit further, we're kind of jumping around. I'm back into listing information now. Remember I showed you that whole listing history when we linked back into Matrix? Well, I've got that whole listing history right here as just a snapshot. So you can see, yet again, I can link back into here, and I can go right back into that whole sales history for that property. So there's all four of them. I can go into the details and get all the details I want to, from the detailed listing. And again, there's that it was renovated and expanded in 2001 piece of information that we were looking at earlier. But also, we've just got the snapshot of those listings. What was the original list price? What did it close at? What are the listing numbers? When did it expire? It's all right here in Realist for you as well. All right, scroll down a little bit further, and then you can see we've got your sales history. So I was just showing you listing history. This is coming directly in from Matrix, from FMLS. Scrolling down a little bit further, now you're into the public record sales history. So we've got history in the case of this property dating all the way back to 1985 in this case, and we may have sales and mortgages even further back. But this one sold, looks like, to Mr. Whipple. Oh, does anyone remember those Charmin commercials? I wonder if that's that Mr. Whipple. But it sold from James here to Mr. Whipple, and then Mr. Whipple sold to Susan in 1992 for $184,000. Susan turned around 2 years later and sold it for $210 to Janet here. And then Janet, held on to that property for about 24 years, although it looks like she did renovate it in 2001. So that's explaining why when she bought it in 1994 for $210,000, she sold it for 1.2 back in 2018. So, it is fun. You can do a little bit of detective work here with some of these properties, including with the mortgage history. We saw this property was purchased by Donna Peters in 2018 for $1.275. She also took out a mortgage on that exact same day for $750,000. So you've got the idea that she put about $500,000 down on that property. You've got a good idea as to what the equity is in that home right now. Now, don't forget these mortgages are not remaining balances. They're originations only. But we do, you can also, another fun one nowadays is, hey, look at those mortgage rates, high, and then they get a lot lower, and then they go right back up again. So, we've got some of that information. You may not have this everywhere on every property, but, you've got a pretty good idea as to what the mortgage and sales history is on this property too. All right, scrolling down a little bit further, two different maps, and you can see these are estimated lot dimensions, estimates only. I would recommend letting you know these should not be used for any legal purposes, but they are very helpful in the case of irregular lots like this. And then this lets you know where the property is located in terms of major cross streets, highways, trails, or anything else, parks, and that's all available too. Don't forget, you can print out these reports, you can email these reports, and your name is always down here at the bottom, so you're well represented on anything you do print out. I do see a couple other pieces of information, or a couple questions that I'll get to before I move on too much further. Can you search by sales score? Yes, you can absolutely search by sales score, so that's going to be available for you. Why are some of these sections not available on all properties? Uh, you know, they should be available on all yours. The one thing I would say is check your customized view and make sure everything is checked. That'll ensure that you've got all these different sections. I will say that there are some instances where if we're unable to give you an estimated value that's any good, if we are looking at a rural property that hasn't sold in 50 years and there are no nearby properties, we're not going to know what that property sells for. We may give it a confidence score well below 50. In which case, and if you read down here, if that sales score is below 50, we simply won't show this section for you. We won't show because we're giving you a value that's just not very helpful for you if it's just sort of a random guess. We'll only give it to you if we think it's relatively good, and we will let you know how relatively good we think it is. Let's see. Can you search by sales score? Yep, absolutely. Will this work for land searches? Absolutely. You can do land searches as well. You can search your properties by different types if you want to, too. Looks like all the questions are starting to come in a little bit quicker now. I may leave some of these for a little bit. My search doesn't look like yours. Yes, you can customize that search, as I mentioned. So you can add different search attributes and you can customize your own search so mine won't look exactly like yours does. Is there a way to find expired or withdrawn properties and export them and their mailing labels? I will absolutely show you how to do that in a little bit, Harry. While viewing a listed property, should I be able to view the sales score? That's another great question. What we've done is we have taken out that sales score for actively listed properties because we're showing you on this sales score the relative likelihood that a property is going to be listed for sale in the next 6 months. So if it's currently listed, this is not a very helpful value for you. In general, this will say NA after that. We do not share the Realist Relay VM with RPR. No, Janita, that does not get shared. That's our own proprietary value. Can you do a mass search by sales score? You absolutely can. I'll get back into to more searching there in a little bit, but I really can't give you any more than it's a proprietary value that we've created on our own. I don't have that formula to you, nor would I be able to share it with you either, even if I did have it. And also, let's see, what else? Comment on the square footage. An explanation to consumers who search by that metric. Well, you can search by building square footage. That's available for you here. So that is searchable for you if you want to. And of course, there are various levels that you can search by too. I'll show you some of the square footage searches as we get a little bit further. How often is this updated with sales history once a property is sold? As I mentioned, we're searching today in Fulton County, Georgia. So right now we're about 2 weeks behind the current date. Now that may be different in each one of your counties. I recommend going back to your search, taking a look at those different counties and seeing the recording date next to each one of those. And that will actually let you know how up to date the information is in that county. Whatever date you see, you won't see a property that has been sold after that date in Realist. But again, as you log into Realist day in and day out, you'll see that date jump up because we're daily getting more information from each and every one of your counties too. And of course, folks, all the people who are asking, yes, this is being recorded and I will give you a copy. But the questions are getting a little bit crazy right now. I'll get back to some of these. I will definitely get back to some of these. I'll show you some of the questions about how I search and everything. But I'm going to, at this point, move forward into a couple more of these reports because I'm getting a little bogged down in questions right now. I do thank you for your patience. I will get to all of these by the time we get to the end of today's session, though. But the property detail report is really the flagship report that you see in Realist right now. It is, again, all your mortgage data, all your sales history, your listing information, the proprietary values on what we think a property might sell for, rent for, or when it might sell, all the physical characteristics, 3 years worth of taxes and assessments, all the information about who owns the property, and even some analytics about the homes too. This is really, again, when you want to find out about a property, this is where it all is. Let me move forward into another report. It's our comparables report, and we'll move quickly through this and again, get to some of your questions and do some freestyle stuff here at the end. The comparables report is literally your one-button comp report. Now, it might not be as powerful as the CMA that you run in Matrix, but it is very easy and very quick. So I just pressed that button that said comparables, and all of a sudden I found a map and it has 10 properties on it. I've got a grid down here and it has 10 properties on it. Now, you may ask why I found these specific properties, and the answer to that, yet again, lies over here in the search criteria section. So again, this is again available on most reports, but if I click on search criteria, this is where I decide how many comps I'm going to return, how I'm going to sort them, whether it's by distance from subject or something different, whether I want to include various tools, whether it's values that we project on these properties or the photos for these properties. I can decide to turn those on or off here. The rest really has to do with physical characteristics you want your comps to have based on your subject property. If my subject property had a pool, I might want to ensure that all the comps that I returned also had a pool. I can keep them within a specific distance of my subject property. So anywhere from 0.1 miles up to 10 miles away, depending on where you are. If you'd like to keep the properties you return as comps between a certain sale price or between a certain number of bedrooms or bathrooms or stories, all those are available here for you in your dropdown. Do you want to include tax or distress sales or not? You can, or you can choose to eliminate them. Do you want to keep all the properties in a specific city or subdivision? You can do that as well if you care to. How many months back do we want to go to find these comps? The dropdown allows you to go back as far as 12 months. But if you want to go back further, you've got a date range button that will allow you to go back, as many years as you want to as well. You can go back to January of 2022 and run comps all the way up to October of 2024 if you'd like to. In this case, I'll just go back 12 months. A couple things I've got filled out here. Living and building area difference to 15%. So that means I would not return any comps that were larger. Well, let's say, let me give you a number first. Let's say, for sake of argument, my subject property is 1,000 square feet. If I have this set to 15%, as I do now, I would not return any comps that are larger than 1,150 square feet or smaller than 850 square feet, keeping it within that plus or minus 15% difference of the square footage of my subject property. You can even suggest with a drop-down the square feet that your comps should be between, or even enter them in a free-form box. Same thing here with lot area. Right now, I don't have this filled out. So if I'm comping a property right now, just for sake of argument, on a 1-acre parcel, I could return a property down the street on a 1/10 of an acre parcel, or a property up the street that's, farmland on a, 10-acre parcel. But of course, I wouldn't necessarily want to find them on farmland, because here under land use code, if I'm comping a single family residential home, I've got same as subject clicked here, which is what I would recommend leaving. Because that way, if you're comping a single family residential home, you will only return other single family residential homes as comps. I would recommend staying away from the style section here. Not every county collects information on the style of a home. If the county doesn't get it, they don't pass it along to Realist. And if you're searching for a Old English home or a quad level home, we may not have that data. You may not find any comps. If you make any changes, you can save them for just this comp report. You can save them and submit them for all comp reports going forward, in which case you'll have to change them the next time you do a comp report. But I didn't make any changes, so I'll just cancel out. So again, I found my 10 comps. I don't have to use all 10. I can look at this grid here and kind of go back and forth and do a little bit of searching and look at some of the details. I like to use price per square foot. My subject property is going for $5.20 per square foot. All right, here's one for $85. That seems like an outlier. I'll take that one out. $199, also very low. $614.75 a square foot. That's very high. So I unchecked those 3. Now I've got 7 properties checked. I can go ahead and click on Generate Report. And there are all my comps and my subject property. If you're not sure what the search criteria you used is to find them, it's right here. Here's some summary statistics for the high, low, median, and average of all my comps. And here's the comp report itself, with my subject property on the left, comps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 out to the right. When you see these arrows, it means you got a little bit more to see. And everything's now kind of nice in a comparison, one line, one column kind of a view, so you can see all how the square footages add up and how the sale prices add up and everything else. This is your comp report. You can even use the slider down here to move back and forth the same way as you use those arrows. So that's your comparables report. Basic comp report. Again, you've got one available to you in Matrix, but You also, of course, have this one available to you here in Realist too. All right, I'm going to show you next a neighbors report, because it's extremely similar to the comparables report I just showed you. So when I click on neighbors, all this neighbors report does is find you your physically closest neighbors. So that's why all these little push pins are sort of clustered around my one subject property here on the corner. And it does look a lot like the comparables report. I usually kind of tout this as more of a buyer's tool. You know, maybe you've got somebody looking to buy this property here in the corner. They want to know more about their neighbors in the area. You know, how long have they lived there? When did they buy their property? Hey, what did they buy it for? Oh, what's their property assessed at? Hey, why are their taxes so much less than mine? You know, it's your nosy neighbors report, for lack of a better term, but it will, again, find all your physically closest nearby neighbors. Yet again, there is a search criteria button that you can access. It's not too groundbreaking. You know, you can find up to 30 different neighbors up to 3 miles away from your subject property. You know, maybe you want to keep them all on the same street if you want. And now, instead of them all being clustered around my home, they're now all on that same Dale Street here, kind of going up and down the street, as you can see as well. All right, let's move on next to a couple of other reports. Number one, I will show you my market trends report. Market trends, and this is again kind of get into those analytics that we've been incorporating into Realist lately. This looks very much like what you saw on our dashboard. You know, total closed sale counts, monthly average over the past 5 years, average in July. You know, your average sale price over the past 5 years in July, because again, those are the most recent months that we've pulled stats for. You know, you've got all those dates. You can go back historically and look at stats for other months or other years if you want to as well. But again, some will say July, some will say August, depending on how quickly we're able to pull some of that data. So, you know, that's your total active listings count and a monthly average of August over the past 5 years too. So all that's available for you there. What we've also got is some charts. So here's your average sale price, and you see various lines here. So we're going to give you the average sale price in Fulton County, Georgia. That's what the purple line lets you know. In the Atlanta, Sandy Springs, Alpharetta metro area. That's what the light blue number is letting you know. And in the zip code of 30305. So you'll see again, what this is telling me is I'm searching for properties in a pretty high dollar zip code. You know, properties in Atlanta proper, or I should say in Fulton County, are going for, you know, $500,000 or $600,000. I'm in a neighborhood where properties are going for about $1 million. And you can even, of course, hover over and you can kind of see how those numbers, you know, you can kind of get there on that number. And you can usually kind of there, you almost get that pop up. The other thing I can do is I can also switch between MLS and tax. This is showing me the average sale price of properties in this zip code that have sold through FMLS. If you want to see the average sale price of properties that have sold through the entire county, you can go to tax. And this is every property. So this is all sales. This is MLS sales. All sales, MLS sales. So you can toggle between them if you want to. Average sale to original list price ratio, clearly data that's only coming from MLS data because we need to know that list price. But the rest of them are toggleable too. So average price per square foot, listings and tax data. Number of sales, how many have been sold through the MLS, how many have sold through the entire county, city, or zip code. Same thing here with change in sales activity too. So that's a great chart, again, giving you information about trends. So again, clients are asking, where are property prices going in this neighborhood, in my neighborhood, in a neighborhood we're looking to buy in a neighborhood we're looking to sell in. Again, you've got the numbers, you've got the information kind of behind the scenes, and you can provide that to your clients if they ever have any questions about that. All right, what else we've got is a neighborhood profile report. This one is a little more demographic in nature. In fact, all the information you see in the upper half of this report is coming from the most recent US Census. That's where you're going to get the estimated population, population growth, median age, average household size, population distribution by age, population distribution by gender, by marital status, housing stats, median home sale price, median year built, how many people own, rent, or how many homes are vacant in the area. Of people that do rent, what are they paying for homes of various sizes in this county? Where do people work? How much money do they bring home each year by doing that work? So it's their household income. How do they get to work every day? What's the weather in the area? What sort of education have people attained that live in this neighborhood? All this is from US Census data. Then what comes next is we get information about local schools and businesses. And here's another time where I'm going to draw your attention to the upper right-hand corner of this report where it says search criteria. Because this is where you can decide how many businesses, how many schools, what types of schools, what types of businesses, and how far away they should be from my subject property that I want to include in this report. So again, you've got different business types, a distance, and how many per category. Schools, public versus private, how far away, what levels of schools do you want to include in this report. So in this case, I've got 4 public schools, elementary schools, within 2 miles of my property. We give you basic stats, including great schools ratings. This is how the kids did on their state standardized test scores the year previous. And this year under community rating allows people to go to great schools and vote on these particular schools if they want to as well, whether they're students or teachers or parents. They can go out there and they can rate these schools as well. There's your public middle schools. Here's all the private schools nearby as well. And then we get into businesses. There are your attractions, your banks, your places to eat and drink. Interested in living near, let's see, the Tyrone Burrito Brothers. There's a Mexican restaurant nearby that's a quarter mile from the property. There's the phone number to give them a call to see if they're open too. So all that's available for you there too. All right, moving a little bit further forward, I am going to go to the assessor map next. Now, not every county will have assessor maps, but when they do, you'll see them available here. They are downloadable as image files. In fact, they'll be TIFF files. See how it went up here into my, I'm using Chrome right now, if you notice. You may get an indication that you have had pop-ups blocked from this site. So of course you may have to add us to your trusted sites or allow pop-ups from this site, whatever. I don't know what browser you might be using, but I know how to do it in Chrome. But you just want to make sure you want to allow pop-ups from Realist. So that way, in this case, I can open up this TIFF file, which could open up in Windows Photo Viewer. In the case of me, you might have TIFF files opening in Photoshop or some other program that'll open up whatever opens up TIFF files on your laptop, on your desktop. That's what it'll open. But basically, look, there's Dale Drive. There's my subject property. There are the actual estimated, or I shouldn't say estimated. Those are the legal lot dimensions for this property. There's your lot and your block. Basically, you'll see these for most counties, and this is your static assessor map that you can open up, and it will be available for you on the assessor map tab. There is also a flood map tab, and I'm going to show you somewhere else you can get floods in just a minute, but we've also got floods available for you here. You can see not an area prone to flooding. There are a few, but clearly they're in areas where maybe there's some creeks running through the area or something like that, and my subject property is not anywhere near any of those flood zones. If it were, you would see via this legend what flood zone it was in, and if you had any questions about those flood zones, what they mean, or anything else, FIPS codes or community numbers, or you needed to know anything else, it's all down here in this little summary at the bottom on the flood map. All right, folks, I'm done with reports. Let me see if there's any other questions that I haven't gotten to yet. Let me see. A couple other things. Looks like you guys slowed down on the questions, which is great. Mass search by cell score, I think, was one of the last things that you guys asked. Also, let's see how often this is updated. Square footage, how the accuracy is wildly inconsistent. Well, I'll have to take a look at that. I do see some people complaining about, in some cases, the data's not right on a particular property. I highly recommend that you report those types of discrepancies to the folks at First MLS. If you've got a helpline there, you should absolutely say, if there's something that doesn't look right, certainly report it. We will get that information, again, filtered through us. We don't have, an open hotline to Realist. There are over 1 million realtors that use Realist. We do not have quite the bandwidth to take all of your end user calls. But what we do have is the ability to answer calls on behalf of the MLS. So if you let us know there are any issues, those issues can be filtered through the MLS. And of course, we will find any data discrepancies or anything else that you might be finding an error in Realist and try to fix it as quickly as possible. Looks like a couple other people had some issues with the comparables report, but you got that fixed up too. Using the neighbors tool. Will it also show if any of the neighboring homes are listed on the market? It absolutely will, Renee. I didn't have any there in that group, but yes, it will show those properties and you'll see some photos for them too. Let's see, can you get market trends for subdivisions? No, Barbara, we can't get them that low down. The market trends are only good for those areas that I showed you, county, city, and zip code, unfortunately. And of course, yes, folks, I will be recording today's session, and I will give it to you as soon as it's done today. And does Realist support search for property owner phones and email addresses? Unfortunately not. Back when we only had landlines, folks, we were able to do searches for those landlines, but now that there are cell phones, and pretty much everybody has those, we are unable to make that information searchable anymore. And will we show listings from FMLS and GAMLS? We're only going to show listings from this instance of Matrix here. I am not too up on your data share right now. If you've got data share properties in here, if I looked for residential properties, sometimes, some of the things that I've seen are, if the properties have a specific listing number, you might know if they come from GAMLS or FMLS. I'm going to say no right now. I think we only have FMLS listings at the moment, but don't quote me on that. I'm just not maybe as familiar with the way your data share works in Matrix, if you have one at all. So, all right, caught up on the questions. I am now going to go back here into we're going to get off the reports. We're going to start looking at the maps now too, because I also want to get you out of here in a timely manner, folks. And we've taken a lot of time, and feel free to hang out. I'll keep going for as long as it takes, but we're on the maps now, and I really want to show you kind of about the map tools and how the maps are very helpful in Realist as well. So first of all, we're on a roadmap. My subject property is right here. You've seen me click on it. It's been listed. There's lots of things I can do. If I get scrolled way out, inadvertently, we do have a nice little zoom feature. It'll zoom right down into that property. It's a little magnifying glass. I can estimate, and I'll stress again, estimate the lot dimensions on this property too. Everything else in here you've kind of seen. The photos, the link back to Matrix and to the listing history. But what we can also do is we can walk the block. Hey, that's great. I want to buy this property, but who lives next to me and when did they buy? Well, it looks like this property was never sold through the MLS as far as we can tell. We only know it has 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. How about these folks up the block? This one sold in 2023. There are some photos for it and the ability for me to link back into Matrix too. Who's my neighbor on the other side? And as I click on them, looks like that property sold back in 2004. So I've got people that have been living there for 20 years, basically. So great way to walk the block, great way to find properties. You could even put a satellite view on here. Maybe there's an area, let's see if I can find something interesting that's, what's going on back here with some of this. There's so many trees. I'm having a hard time, but maybe there's some more commercial properties. There's a school over here potentially. If I tap on this school, who owns this? It's the city of Atlanta. Maybe it's a public school down there. Maybe it's a park. I could be misreading that. I'm not sure. Here's a common area over here. Who owns that? The city of Atlanta. You can get information on anything simply by finding it on the map. Here's the USPS owns this particular property. We don't have a whole lot of data on it, but again, it's very easy for you to just scroll around and find properties that you're looking for. All right, I see a question now coming up that's asking me, how do we use this for farming? And by the way, we do have a hybrid view. We do have a terrain view as well. It is a little hilly in your area, and you'll be able to see where those hills are. But I'm about to show you how to farm right now. So what I like to do here is, this is where I'm going to do some mailing addresses. I'm going to print out some mailing labels, and I'm going to show you how to export this information into a spreadsheet too. So for sake of argument, let's say I am a realtor with FMLS. And I just sold this property here, this one with the red sold button. Sold it, maybe just a couple months ago. And what did I sell it for? I think it was on the market for about $1.4 million. I like selling homes that are worth $1.4 million. And I know there are a lot of homes in this neighborhood that are worth at least $1.4 million, and I would like to sell them. So I'm going to do a just sold mailing to the people in this neighborhood. Now, certainly if you wanted to, you could search by the subdivision where this property is located. Now, I don't remember where that is, but there's a subdivision list right here. If I click on it, it is a lookup table. So if I put in the word, Heights, for example, there's always a bunch that say Heights. You can select any of these subdivisions. I will say that sometimes the way we get these subdivisions brought into us, from the county, Baker Ferry Heights, Baker's Ferry Heights, they get a little strange. I don't always love searching this way. You can, But I would select everything that looks even remotely spelled like Baker Ferry Heights, and I would try all of them. Just want to show you that's how the subdivision search works. You can search for properties by subdivision. You could search by a city. That'd be huge. So would a zip code. What I like to do is I like to do this search because I'm going to do it real targeted right here in this little triangle. I like to just draw a shape. So I could draw a circle, rectangle. I'm going to use a polygon because maybe I really like these properties, but don't need anything much further north than Greenview Avenue. We'll go out to the edge here around Peachtree Park. Go all the way down. That looks like that's maybe some more, some larger lots. Might not be stuff I'm interested in, so I'm just going to keep it residential. Click all the way up there. I've now drawn this shape. Okay, let me take out 2941 out of my house number. Let me take Dale Street out of my street name. Let's make sure I have everything sort of taken out. And I'm about to come up with 179 different properties that are going to, that are about to be, that I'm about to bring up. So 179. That's a big search. That's a lot of people, to mail to. So maybe I want to narrow it down by putting in a sell score, finding properties that are more or less likely to sell. So sell score is an attribute that you can use. I see a lot of questions about this. Here's that sell score attribute. If you don't see it, go into customize search, go ahead and find it under the S and add it there for sell score. So you've got all that in there now. So I've still got my 182 matches there. I'm going to take this sell score and I'm going to put in a number of 700. I changed it, you might have noticed, to is greater than, rather than putting it in, between two certain numbers. So now I've got a sell score of at least 700. I can even put in higher. How about a sell score of at least 800? Maybe we'll narrow it down even further. And you can see my results. I'm down to 66 matches. So I went from 180, almost 200 properties, but I put in a sell score of 800. And now I'm down to only 66 properties that have a sell score of at least 800 that are in this shaded area. I'm going to run this search. And we'll get all the properties in that shaded area with a sell score of at least 800. Now, sometimes I do intersect other parcels here, as you can see. If that parcel is just barely intersected there by some of these properties, we will get that extra property in there. By the way, these are not only here for you on the map, they're also down here for you on the list too. So you can scroll through them and you can see maybe you don't want to include this one or you don't want to include that one in your mailing. And now when you're ready, you can go ahead and you can click on labels. And here's where we give you the choices of labels. I don't know what you got sitting in your desk drawer right now, but if they say Avery 5160, 5161, or 5162, you're in business. Select any of those or go out to your Office Depot and buy them. Scroll down a little bit further. We're doing a just sold mailing. I'm doing a just sold mailing in this area, letting people know I sold this property. Let me list my property with you in the near future. I want to use the tax billing address. I want to find the people who are authorized to sell this home, not necessarily the people who live in this property. They could be renters. Now, if you want to address these envelopes in different ways, you can actually take the owners directly off the deeds. If there are people that own properties that live in foreign countries, you can also address those. Inevitably, if you're going to do a mailing and you're going to do, a mailing to 1,000 different people, you're going to come up against a person, a builder, a landlord that owns more than one property. And you don't want to send them 10 different, postcards or envelopes, with your correspondence and them asking to list their property. You don't want to send 10 different ones to that same person. You want to send one. So we'll eliminate those duplicate labels for you. And also, the names are coming off the deeds. Those can be weird sometimes. Maybe you just want to put, a generic header like future home seller or dear neighbor or current occupant, whatever you like. Each of you are allowed 5,000 exports per person per month. And that goes for these mailing exports and also the full record exports I'm going to show you how to do in a minute. So I'm going to create these. They're going to open up in a .rtf file extension. That stands for rich text format. That means it'll open in Word, WordPerfect, Pages, whatever word processing system you use. And now, just by drawing that shape and putting in a sell score of at least 800 and finding all those homes, I have now got a nice little mailing campaign. All I need to do at this point is put my labels in the printer, print them out, affix them to my postcards or my envelopes or anything else that I want to send out, and you've got a nice little mailing campaign and you can drum up some business for yourself. So a few things to point out. Again, trusts very often own these properties. We're also going to find these people where they live, whether it's in Atlanta, whether it's in Duluth, whether it's anywhere else. Here's an LLC that owns these properties. Another thing to point out, we do scrub our database of addresses against the do not mail list. And there is a filter that allows you to be able to filter out properties that are on the do not mail list so you don't mail them. Be careful with that filter turned off, because as you can see, not only do we put a little parenthetical that says no mail next to the address in Realist, it also comes out on the mailing label. So now not only are you mailing someone on the no mail list, you're letting them know that you're mailing them on, that you're mailing them on the no mail list. It's a lot of no's and a lot of mails. You can take that kind of stuff out. And, I won't tell anyone if you don't. But these are your mailing labels. They're all available for you. And of course, you can edit them if you want to as well. All right, I'll close out of there. If you don't want to do mailing labels yourself, you could also export all the same information into a spreadsheet if you want to too. So click on Export. Quick Export will export anything you see here on the grid and all the properties you have checked. So it's just what you see on the grid. Customize Export is going to allow you to do a lot more. So here's where you have almost 200 fields of data that you can export into a spreadsheet if you want to. You can also save your own export templates. So after you check all these, or whichever ones you want, you then can save them as a template. I've got one called my owner mailing export. And not surprisingly, all the same stuff that I just had on those mailing labels is selected over here. I previously selected it, saved it as a template. You can, again, create your own exports with characteristics or tax information, save that as a template, and run it again and again. But what I've done is I've taken everything that I put on the labels and I've put it basically in a spreadsheet. So as I go ahead and I export this is going to open up in a CSV format. So that's going to be comma separated values. This is going to open up for me in Excel. If you're a Mac user, it might open up in numbers. I did see someone say, if Word isn't available, what are the options? .rtf, when we were talking about Word earlier, it stands for rich text format. So really, any word processing program you have should be able to open it. It's not a .doc, and it's not an Apple file or anything like that. But here's everything I just exported. Everything I put on a mailing label is now here in a spreadsheet for you. So owner name, last name broken out, their address. Do they live in the property? Do they not live in the property? Are they on the no mail list? You could send this off to a mailing house if you wanted to. Or again, export assessments and taxes and sale prices. I am not an Excel wizard, but I know enough to know that you can run pivot tables and do all kinds of stuff with the data that you get exported into Excel. So really, that's what I've been trying to show you over the past, several minutes, getting information out of Realist into other programs, whether it's exporting raw data, whether it's printing out mailing labels, or whether it's even printing out or emailing PDFs of either the reports that I've shown you already, the map, the table that you're looking at right now, or even the card view that I'm about to show you as well. You can print things out as PDFs when it comes to reports and data, but you can also export that data into spreadsheets and even in mailing labels too. All right, speaking of which, let's look at more of these map tools. I'm going to clear all this out. It's a great little button, clears everything out of your search, clears everything out of your grid. But I also now do want to show you what's going on here with some of the other map tools you have available to us. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit further. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn on some overlays. Number one, there are neighborhood boundaries. Those are going to show up in purple. They're very good in your more highly populated urban areas. So, when we're here in Atlanta, you're going to see a lot of different neighborhoods. But as you get into some more rural areas that are maybe outside Atlanta, you're starting to see them in the upper right-hand corner there, you're not going to see quite as many neighborhood boundaries. So I'll go ahead and turn those off right now. You can put a lot of boundaries on here at one time. Here's your zip code boundaries. Those are in blue. You'll need to scroll in a little bit if you hope to see the actual zip codes within them. There you go. You can start to see those a little bit. Also, I can turn those off. City boundaries are in green. County boundaries are in orange. I'll go through a couple that I think you'll find of interest. Elementary school, middle school, high school, those are great. If you've got people looking to buy properties and they want to know, is my kid going to be at Morningside Elementary, or is my kid going to be at Springdale Park Elementary or East Rivers Elementary? We've got all that information for you here. Same thing with high schools and middle schools. We do have your MLS areas. So this is a custom overlay that we've done for you. Here's area 21, 22, 23. This may not mean a lot of things to outsiders, but it probably does to you. We've got all of your MLS areas here, so that's all available for you. And the other one is your flood zone. I showed you a flood zone report. We actually also have, the flood zones themselves on these interactive maps. You can scroll down into certain areas that look like they might be prone to flooding. Here's one that says, for example, X500. You can even hold down Control and click, and it'll actually give you all the information from FEMA, the last time FEMA updated that panel, the panel date, and whatnot as well. So that's all under boundaries. There are other things that I can show you too that can be overlaid on top of the map. Let me scroll in a bit closer. I'm getting downtown Atlanta now. But you can see, for example, distressed properties, where are the auctions, where are the bank-owned properties, where are the bank-owned sales, and you'll start to see some of these kind of light up. For example, looks like I'm in a not great area for finding too many of these, but I'll try to look up a couple of them for you. Let's see if I can find a slightly more residential area with a couple more push pins. Here's a couple. For example, here's one that is a bank-owned sale. So this one's in blue. So as I scroll down a little bit further, and I actually click on that parcel itself, and I open that up, this is what we call a bank-owned sale, and it's actually one of our distressed properties. What you have to do is you've got to go down into the sales history for this particular property to see what happened with it. So when's the last time it sold, and who sold it, and who bought it? And the answer is here, somebody called Angel Oak Prime Bridge LLC, owned this property, and then sold it to Natalie and Ethan Dean, as you can see. So that's not a great one. It's REO or bank owned. A lot of times you'll find ones that actually went through foreclosure before, and then the bank took ownership of them, and then sold to a third party after that. I'll see if I can find a couple, of that nature, but let me see as I scroll around and see if I can find a few other tagged properties here. There's another one down there. I can give a click on that one. Or how about if I find some bank-owned properties? So for example, here's one over here. This one's got the little green tag on it. This means it's bank-owned or REO owned. So let me close on that. Let me open up that one. And sometimes these are a little weird again. We'll take a look at some of the names on these. A lot of times they're banks that we have, in our lists. But a lot of times they'll be, again, real estate companies in many cases. I'm also in a very sort of more industrial area. I'd rather be in a more sort of residential area. I do see someone that says that looks like it was bank-owned from last year. We were looking at a bank-owned sale, though. So it's the last time that property sold is where we actually are taking that information from. So that's where we're actually kind of taking a look at those in most cases. Here's another great way to look for foreclosures before we kind of start clicking on them in the on the flags. There's a foreclosure search that's available for you. So take a look at this. If I want to find maybe properties that are scheduled to go to foreclosure that are under auction, I can say, let's look for properties that have a foreclosure auction date greater than today. And I'll just do a search. Might take a second. And yes, Marianne, you've got that exactly right now. I see your comment there now. So here's a split view. Somebody asked me before, hey, can we find properties that have expired listings that are also scheduled to go to auction? I mean, this is a great opportunity for you guys to maybe potentially solicit this property and see if it needs to be sold. I mean, it's an expired listing and it's scheduled to go to auction sometime soon. Let's open this up and let's take a look. So when you get these auction properties and an expired listing, you get this extra foreclosure tab here. So on this extra foreclosure tab, this property is scheduled to go to auction on October 1st. It's pretty quick. So you got 5 days, 6 days to make your move. I'm assuming 136 Pryor Street in Atlanta is probably your county courthouse. I could be wrong, but that's usually where they sell these. And here's the mortgage and the foreclosure history for this particular property too. So again, great information about distressed properties, about foreclosures that you're really just not going to necessarily get, anywhere else. So that's all kind of found under this little button over here for distressed properties. I can turn those off too. Let us, Zoom, let's clear all that out. Nope, I did not want to do that search. Let's go ahead, cancel search. Let's clear all that out again. Let's get down, sort of into the sort of area we were at before, maybe up in Marietta. And I'll show you a couple other things in these sort of more residential neighborhoods that we can upload a couple other things on top of these maps too. So I showed you distressed properties. Here are all the properties that sold over the past 3 months. So everywhere you see a red sign popping up, that's a property that sold according to the county. You want to see where all the properties that sold according to the MLS are? You can put these little red bubbles on top of them. Word to the wise, everywhere a red bubble didn't just overwrite a red sign, that's a sale according to the county that wasn't a sale according to the MLS. So those could be sales through a competing MLS. Those could be private sales for sale by owners too. If you want to see the rest of the inventory around the area, you've got everything here. Green is active, red is sold, orange is pending, and purple is expired. And I see someone saying they don't see where my foreclosure search was earlier on the left. It's over here. You need to be under My Search, and you need to select it from the drop-down, and it'll be your foreclosure search down there in that drop-down. So Quick Search won't have it. My Search is where all those custom searches are that you can build if you want to. So that's where that's available. All right. Property characteristics. I need to scroll down even further for this one so we can get way down. And then I can start to show you things like, hey, what are the bedroom and bathroom counts on all these properties? Or what are the square footages of the buildings on all of these lots? And you'll get that information placed on top of these properties too. We even have some sort of larger overarching trends as well. So as I scroll out a little bit further, I kind of need to give you a little bit of a 30,000 foot view here and get out past sort of the Atlanta metro area. But as I do that, and I look at these trends, you can actually see, hey, what's the median sale price in the different zip codes in this neighborhood? Areas in red, up here in Buckhead where we've been hanging out, average sale price up there is $1.3 million. But, come out here, to potentially some areas in South Atlanta, and $249,000 is the most recent sale price, or the average sale price over the past 3 months in 30315, for example. You can see, for example, where are we selling more properties versus less properties? Again, warmer colors are going to indicate higher sales levels. Cooler colors, your greens and your blues, less sales in those given time periods as well. You can even aggregate them by neighborhood, where those neighborhood boundaries are available. So you can get very granular there. Zip code is one thing, but neighborhood is entirely another, and you can get really pretty down there in some of those trends. All right, let's zoom down maybe into, I don't know, downtown Atlanta is going to have quite a lot, but as I get further down in there, you can, for example, with these binoculars, show via Google Maps, where are the banks, where are the places to eat, where are the places to shop. So you can find all those places, and anywhere there's a fork and a knife, you can give it a little click, and Subway, eat fresh, $5 footlong, Chick-fil-A. I definitely found where all the fast food is. So I can clear those out. That's just under your binoculars up there. So I can take those out by unchecking them, and those will all go way off the map. There are driving directions. So if you want to know how to get from point A to point B, you can actually put driving directions on the map if you want to, and print those out. Also, there's Find on Map. Find on Map I find very helpful. My little hint here is it says put an address in there. You can certainly find properties based on address over here if you want to. We've showed you how to do all those different searches. But here you can put in things like, how about, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. There it is. I can find Mercedes-Benz Stadium. That's where the Falcons play. So you can find things like parks and lakes and other points of interest that you might not be able to necessarily search for over here in your regular search attributes. There is a measurement tool. So if you ever wondered how far it is from one end of Mercedes-Benz Stadium to the other, it is 953 feet. And also you can even put little annotations on the map. So you can say, this is where the Falcons play. And what you see is what you get when you print out these maps. So the measurements, all this other stuff will stay there. And of course, you can also clear out any of those tools simply by using the clear all button, and it'll get rid of those too. All right, folks, we're in the home stretch. So lastly, what I want to show you is I'm just going to fill up this grid with a bunch of properties. I'm going to do, what we call a Smith search. Don't do a Smith search, though, because you'll find thousands of people. But I'm doing a Wilkins search. So there's 165 of them. Here they all are, only in Fulton County. If I find one on the grid, I can pop it right up to the top of the map, too. So it's very easy for me to just find them and pop them right up to the top so you can find them very easily. When I make the list, when I make this screen one big list, what happens is we go to this card view. And this is a great place for me to show you the reason that we do this card view is because, as I mentioned, there's no Realist app. There is, however, a responsive design website that we give you with Realist. So when you shrink it down to the size of a phone, see how everything fits? So I can, of course, put in my search attributes, run my search. I'll find all my properties in a nice little list. So there they are. I can toggle between the list and the map. Everything I just showed you on the map, all the boundaries, all these properties, all these trends, all these points of interest, all work. So no matter what size screen you're on, you're going to be fine. Click on the list. You can imagine just swiping down with your finger, eventually finding a property that interests you, giving it a tap. Now you're in the property detail report. And look, though, everything fits. The photo fits. All the details fit. You might need to scroll over to see various things, but everything fits on one screen. You might notice the tabs for the other reports go away. So comparables, market trends, they're all here in this dropdown. But the wider you get, notice how everything snaps to. Everything comes back. All of a sudden, you get some of your tabs back. So if you're working on something, the size of an iPad, you're going to get your tabs back. If you shrink it all the way back down to the size of a phone, your navigation is going to change a little bit. So again, that's how that portion of Realist works. Let's talk a little bit about this grid right here. So for example, I can favorite properties from here too. All I have to do is press the little star. Whenever you do star those properties, they end up over here in your favorites. You can even go to your saved favorites. And if you want all those other properties that you saved as favorites to go away, you can always remove them and just keep that one property we were looking at before as your favorite. So that's how you can keep those nice and neat too. So as I hit the back button, we always in these cards try to give you the status, the photos, the address, the beds, the bathrooms, and the square footage. These three things in here, though, are configurable. So owner name, total assessed value, owner occupied. Maybe I don't care if it's owner occupied. I want to know what the taxes are instead. I can go to customize cards, and I can take out owner occupied. I can go to assessment and tax, and I can click on annual tax and hit apply. And now you'll see instead of owner occupied, my annual tax is thrown now into those cards. So that's how you can customize those cards. Plus, you can toggle between card view and list view. So here's my list view. I'm just in the upper right-hand corner. And of course, I can toggle back and forth to card view too. So very easy for you to toggle between those two different ones if you want to. When you're looking at the table view, however, there's some other things that you can do. So number one, there's some columns of data over here that don't have headers. These are going to include your photos. This is where if there's a photo icon, you'll get photos for these properties. Also, this is where you'll see the listing status. Is it sold? Is it active? Is it pending? And of course, you can link back into Matrix if you click on these. And then, of course, your foreclosures and distress sales will also be here. If you want to sort these properties, I can choose to click on sale price, and I can sort ascending. I can sort descending. The default sort order is going to be by your tax ID number, which is all the way over here on the right-hand side. So you'll see those tax ID numbers. And if you want to change other things about this grid, you can as well. So up here on Customize Table, if you're not able to see maybe as many properties as you want in one screen, you can use compact mode. A little harder to read, but you get more properties available to you in your screen. If you want to, you can go back to that default mode. If you've got 165 properties as I do, but you only want to look at like 5 of them, check the ones you want to look at, and you can click on Show Only Selected Rows. You can also always bring back that list too. It's not gone forever. Reset to default list. And if you don't like the order these columns are in or which columns are showing, I suggest going to Show Hide Columns. And that way you can say, well, I want zip code up here and I want address down there and I don't want sale price, but I do want fireplaces. And you can customize your grid to your own specifications if you want to as well. So it's that easy to change those up too. There are a couple of other buttons up here of note. Number 1, your settings, this little gear icon. This is just sort of getting behind the hood a little bit. If you only find one property when you do a search, we'll automatically open a property detail report for you. I find that annoying. I like to leave it unchecked, so I do. You saw my folks on my mailing labels who had a no mail tag next to them. Well, that's because I had this box checked, and I'm allowing myself to display mailing labels that are on the do not mail list. If I uncheck this, I would have filtered out that particular property and any other properties on the no mail list. You don't really have to worry about unmatched sale transactions. Just know that if you're looking for a property, and maybe it's an area of new construction, let's just say for sake of argument, we might pick up the deed of sale on that property. If a builder, subdivides a parcel of land, sells it to someone, we pick that up in like 2 weeks. But we might only update with your assessor's office maybe once a year, twice a year to get that tax ID number that's associated with that parcel. So that means we can't show you all the great characteristics about that parcel, the dimensions and other things, but we may have picked up the deed and we can at least show you that unmatched sale transaction if you have this box checked. When you're doing a search, you can only return up to 3,000 properties at one time. That's as many as you can export at one time as well. And remember how I kept going back to the reports every once in a while, and I would go back to those reports and I'd say, here's where you can set the defaults for your comparables report. Or here's where you can set the defaults for your neighbors report. Remember, they were on those buttons at the tops of each and every one of those reports. This is just another place where you can set those, neighborhood profile or anything else. As I mentioned, you can email properties as PDFs directly out of Realist. So you might want to, put in a signature. I can put in, 555-1212, www.isellhomes.com. You do have a nice little text editor. So if you want to put your name really big and bold and in red, you can set up your own little signature if you want to too. And of course, just save that anytime you want. Really nothing else to go over here. I will point out, folks, I just went over an absolute ton of information for you. I see questions. People are like, I don't see where that is. I don't see where this is. You're going too fast. I did go, as fast as I could for you today. It took about an hour and a half or so. But what I want to point out is of course, there'll be a recording for you. You're going to get a thank you email coming to you after today's session, and I will ensure that a link to today's recording is sent to you so you can revisit it. But also know that there is online help. There's a question mark over here on the right-hand side, and click on Go to User Guide. And you don't even have to be logged into Realist to get to this. You can bookmark this if you want to as well. So there's a couple different things: getting started, feature guide, and tutorials. Getting started, you're feeling like, woof, this Realist is really thick. I'm not sure about this yet. Go to getting started, finding your way around Realist, understanding how to do a search, setting your user preferences like I just showed you. What everybody always says is, oh my God, he showed me how to do those labels and those exports, but man, I can't remember how to do that anymore. Go over here and click on Features Guide. And over here down at the very bottom, we've got creating mailing labels. So we've got a whole tutorial on everything I just showed you on how to create mailing labels and how to print them out. And if you don't want to read about this stuff, you want to watch a quick video tutorial on it, I will highly recommend clicking on tutorials over here. And everything from an intro to Realist, to labels, to cell score, to flood maps, to insights dashboard, it's all right here. These are all videos that I've created for you. Hi, and welcome to this tutorial on Realist. So there you go. My voice sounded a little bit better back then. I'm a little talked out at this point today, but that's where everything is that's available for you. Folks, I hope I showed you something today that was of interest. I know Realist is your product of the month. We do tout it as our tax and public record system, but it really is starting to incorporate so many analytics, so much great data. I know it can be overwhelming, but again, if you're looking for numbers to back up what you need to say, or for what some of your actions are that you're taking with some of your clients, if you need to find some foreclosures, things that you can't find anywhere else, Realist is really your one-stop shop. Don't forget, you can get there from your single sign-on page. It's one of your tabs. It's right there. It says Realist. But of course, there are various ways you can get in from Matrix, most explicitly public records, Realist tax. I hope I showed you something in Realist today that you didn't know how to do before. I hope I showed you something that's going to be helpful for you, that's going to help you make some money. Again, have a great rest of your day, folks. Enjoy using Realist. And thanks again for being CoreLogic, folks. Take care. Bye-bye.